Starting from the outline, then drawing individual eye detail and filling out every other feather wasn't so easy to draw. So in this tutorial, I'll show you how to draw an owl with charcoal and color pencil. And the materials and color swatches are mentioned in the description down below. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, here you can see that I have a reference image along with the drawing paper. So what I'm gonna do is that start the process by tracing method. So the first thing is to trace the image on blank paper and hatch the back of the printout with a 2H pencil. Next, I'm gonna place the reference printout over the blank drawing paper and then transfer the details of an owl using the sharp pencil. So due to the graphite on the back, you have now copied the outline of an image. So this method can help you to focus on the physical demands of drawing or develop hand-eye coordination and muscle memory that are really important for controlling the materials of drawing. Anyways, let's go further. After tracing, I've got the basic sketch of the owl as you can see on the screen. Now I'm going to use the indenting or embossing tool to indent the very tiny details which I feel must be done before getting into the shading. Next, I'm gonna enhance the sketch using the HB pencil by drawing the eyes and pupil. There are like incomplete circles. Along with that, I'm going to draw the beak of an owl as well. Now let's move on to the background area, and for the background I'm going to use the charcoal by general to draw the division outline of the background, and then I'm gonna use the 4B charcoal stick to fill in the background of an owl evenly. And for the blending I'm gonna use the beauty blender with the fingertips of mine to smudge it all done very nicely. So once the background is done, now I'm gonna use the kneaded eraser to pull up the charcoal from few spots followed by the reference image. Now I'm going to use the Staedtler Lomograph black pencil for the eyes of an owl by starting off with the circle and for the really dark areas, and then I'll be blending it out with the blending stump to get a really smudged look. Next, I'm going to use the cadmium orange and dark yellow chrome to shade the base layer of the owl eye with a bit touch of cadmium red. I'm also going to use the blending stump to really smudge everything out evenly. So make sure that you leave some of the areas unsaturated in the owl's eye for the narrated look. So I'm also using the walnut brown where I found the muddy shade in the iris and the cobalt turquoise to add a bit narrated look for the unsaturated areas around. So I'll repeat these swatches unless I'll get the desired results followed by the reference image. Later on, I'll be adding the cadmium yellow and black a bit more where I need it. So once the color shading is done, now I'll be using the Posca Uniball white pen for adding the bright highlights to really make the owl's eye stand out. And I'm also using the electric eraser where I need to erase some errors so it works really well if you have a lot of layers done. Let's move on to the owl's feather. So for that, I'm going to use the carbon sketch pencil by General for drawing the basic shapes of the owl's feather. Next, I'm gonna use the blending brush or somewhere the beauty blender to blend the basic sketch as a base layer. After that, I'm going to use the Tombow Mono Zero eraser to add the feather texture using the subtractive method. So the subtractive drawing method is a technique in which the drawing surface is covered with the graphite or charcoal marks and then erased to make the image. This technique is mostly used to add texture, establish the tonal shapes, or create the appearance of reflected light in a drawing. So once I have done half of the owl's feather covered with this technique, next I'm gonna use the 6B charcoal pencil to add the shadow details underneath the feather. So I'm using the charcoal 6B along with the polychromos black pencil. And I'm also tweaking up the things with the Tombow Mono Zero eraser where required, followed by the reference image. So here I'm using the carbon sketch pencil by General to add the fine details in the feathers which are overlapped the owl's ear. So I'm using the Faber-Castell black polychromos as well here to enhance the darkness of the shadow and also correcting the errors using the Tombow Mono Zero eraser. Next, I'm going to use the 2B charcoal pencil to draw the feather in the mid of the portion of the owl in between the eyes. And then using the Tom Mono Zero eraser to pull up the charcoal for the feather texture. And then I will be back with the 2B charcoal pencil again to add furthermore feathers on all over the owl face using the reference image. So now let's add the highlights using the Tombow Mono Zero eraser and an electric eraser for the stubborn areas. Alright, now I'm going to draw the details on the other side of an owl's ear using the eraser and charcoal. Now I'm going to replicate the same process on the other side of the owl face using the same techniques, tools, and methods. So let's move on to the second eye of an owl, and for that I'm going to draw the owl's eye circle with the Stellar black pencil as I did before, and going to add the details using the mechanical pencil. Next I'm going to use the swatches that I have used previously in the first eye of the owl. So starting off with the yellow, orange and black along with the Posca pen all together. Once it is done, let's move on to the other side of the feather which was left unfinished. So I'm now here using the Tombow Mono Zero eraser for the subtractive method again by pulling the charcoal from the paper using the eraser, and then later on I will be adding the shadow using the 6B charcoal pencil or any other darker pencil than this grade. Now let's move on to the owl's beak. So for the owl's beak, I'm gonna use the Tombow HB pencil for the basic guideline over the beak before shading. Then using the 2B charcoal pencil, I'm gonna go at the first layer of beak texture and then blend it out with the blending brush. So I'll keep building up the layers using the different shades of the charcoal pencil. So here I'm using 6B. Along with that, I'm using the Tombow eraser for adding the highlights. Also here I'm using the Faber-Castell Black Polychromos pencil for the glaze over the charcoal shading. So make sure that you do your blending whenever you apply any new layer. Alright, so I'll be parking these big details right here and then moving on to the rest of the feather over the wings of the owl by drawing the feather basic shapes first and then blend them out with the brush or any blender. After that, I'm going to use the Tombow Mono Zero eraser to pull up the charcoal for the texture of the feather. So now moving back to the beak area to add the rest of the details, and so for that I'm going to be overlaying the dark values using the Polychromos black color pencil, And so the main thing here is now to add the Posca Uni ball pen details for enhancing or making the big area of the owl pop in all over the drawing. Once the beak area is done, now it's time to add the Posca Uni ball pen details as a bright highlighter all over the owl's highlights along with the Faber-Castell black polychromos pencil. So what I'm doing here is that just working on the individual feather all over the owl face by adding the texture using the Posca pen, and the textures are different in each portion. So make sure that you follow the reference for the accurate portion of the feather texture. So along with the Posca pen, I'm also using the Faber-Castell Polychromos black pencil for adjusting the darks and the lights. And the reason for that is that using the black pencil is to redefine the details of the Posca pen and give it the actual depth and three-dimensional look. So make sure that you follow the reference because there are a lot of whites and a lot of different texture that you will find when you focus on each feather individually as per the specific portion. And lastly, I'm gonna reapplying the charcoal using the stick in the background of an owl to make everything subtle. So this is it for today's tutorial. I hope that you have got some value out of it. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.